In the aftermath of the Los Angeles area wildfires, what's next? What's going to happen to real estate in Southern California, both in those communities and the surrounding areas? I'm Bill Gross, and this is my weekly real estate market update. Get together every week and review the top news. Of course, the top news, dominating the change in the real estate market for the next, I think, 5 to 10 years will be the aftermath of the Palisades fires and the related fires in Southern California. These particular issues come in an amazing transition of power in America, where we now have an incoming president, and you already see the tension between President Trump and who's a Republican and conservative versus the Democrats and more progressive, obviously Gavin Newsom and City Mayor Karen Bass. And so how is this going to resolve itself out? You have on one hand, one set of principles, on the other hand, another set of principles. We're going to get into that. Now, before we get into that, let's take a look at what the real estate market is. We've got a quick update on the market so we can see what we're playing into. In any real estate market, I always say there's two factors that affect the supply and demand. And demand side of real estate is affected by real estate interest rates. Mortgages last week inched up a little bit. They closed at 7.11. They were like 7.06 the prior week. We're above 7 slightly. And if you look at for the last year or so, we're kind of a little on the higher side, certainly higher than we were back at the end of the summer. But we've been in this kind of 7% range. These rates are good enough. And I will say, I noticed that gasoline is down about 50 cents already a gallon, and that will have a downward effect on inflation pressures in the economy. So maybe we'll see rates come down a little bit, but for now, the rates are still good enough where there's enough buyers for the houses that are available. And that's the key factor. On the supply side, which is how many houses are there available for sale, or what we call inventory, we are still at a historic low. Now, if you look at this graph, you'll notice these years are lower, but these are all pandemic years. You have to go back to 2019, which is when the pandemic started. You'll see that every year had more inventory for sale. And so what happened as a result of COVID is really we stopped building houses in the same number we used to. We have less inventory available, and as such, we have less excess homes for sale available to buyers. As long as there's not more homes and buyers, prices can't go down. Now, these are national numbers, but nationally, you can see that we have the seasonal period every year in the winter, inventory goes down. But even this year's number is still higher than the COVID years, but lower than all the pre-COVID years. So we have historic low inventory currently. Now, real estate is very local. In Southern California, Los Angeles area, we have some different factors. Currently, we're still at a 36, which is a slight seller's market. Now, keep in mind, it's still very early to see the effect of the fires as far as inventory, as far as homes that are not in the market for sale that might have been, or homes that are not in the market for lease that might have been. But that said, we're still at a slight seller's market. All the factors still showing that way. Though already we see a little bit of a price increase. We see a little bit of market action staying in the 36 for Los Angeles. So again, this is a slight seller's market. We've been in this range for a while. We were as high as 40 during the COVID period and inching down a bit ever since, one tick at a time. And 36 is where we've been for the last few months or so. In fact, you can see here all the way back to October, we've been in that same range. Okay. So let's talk about the fires and what the effect is going to be for us going forward. Oops, I lost my spot. Let's go back. There we are. Okay. So, and where do we go as far as, I didn't mean to share. Okay, hold on. Man, we lost our, where's my screen at? Awkward. There we are. Okay, I'm sorry about that. A little technical difficulty. Okay. So what's happening with insurance issues? What's happening with the fires? The first factor that you're going to hear a lot about, it's just starting, is the insurance. Now, the insurance is an issue that I was talking about before the wildfires. The insurance has been a problem in California and Florida, in fairness, for the last year, as there have been these disasters, and insurance companies have taken large losses. And the question is what to do about it. Now, in California, we have an insurance commissioner who's never written an insurance policy, knows nothing about insurance. He's a politician at heart. And as a result, we have this California Fair Plan, which is basically the state of California now, has become the largest insurer of new insurance in California with over $450 billion of insurance in force. And this is insurance in areas that other insurance companies don't want to go. the Malibu, the hills up in the Palisades were heavily concentrated with fair plan insurance. Now, fair plan is limited to $3 million, and I don't know how many people really shed a tear for somebody losing, a $7 million house and only getting $3 million in insurance from the state. This has been a way for the state to socialize the very wealthy insurance amongst the middle class, because the insurance rates are up across the state to pay for people who live in high-risk areas that insurance companies do want to write. To make it worse, we found out that the New York Times is reporting currently that this insurance agency, in effect, Fair Plan, has only now $377 million of cash left to pay off claims. Now, one of the things they did do is they also buy insurance on their insurance claims. It's called reinsurance. So they do have about, it's estimated $5 billion of reinsurance assets, but it's the claims that they're likely to be involved with. If they have 20% of the $150 billion expected, that could be $30 billion. Even as a third of that, $10 billion, where's the money come from? Well, that $5 billion either can come from taxpayers, you and me, or it'll be forced on insurance companies, which will raise insurance for everybody, making homes less affordable, making it harder for people to buy, harder for people to keep their houses, and more importantly, insurance companies less likely to stay in the state. So this is a big problem. I think most people are very cautiously watching the major insurance companies, State Farm, Allstate, all of them, to see, do they have the financial wherewithal to get through this period of time? I'm not sure they do. I think as these numbers unravel, what's going to happen is insurance companies will start pointing the finger at the government saying, hey, we insured fairly, but you didn't properly put water in the reservoirs. You didn't properly put water in the fire hydrants. You didn't properly have your equipment ready. And so they could claim incompetence or negligence by the state or city or county. And even if they're not right, they could use as a way to delay paying out claims once they get to the point of facing bankruptcy. So I would say at a minimum, I think they're likely to have major insurance companies crash, but at a minimum, they're going to delay things. They're going to use all kinds of legal excuses and stories and maneuvers. I was talking to an elderly lady just today in my son-in-law's apartment building. She's living there because her house burned down. And she's an association up in the Highlands, and they already have a settlement. They had a settlement for 5 years. They were suing a builder, and they have the settlement. Now the place is burned down. And what's going to happen with the money? Well, that's usually handled in the settlement, but already the attorneys are maneuvering to renegotiate the settlement because the property burned down. Why is that? Because insurance companies aren't going to have the money, and they're going to use legal maneuvering as a tactic to try to stay in business. So I would say expect a legal quagmire. Earlier this week, I did an interview with an attorney, and I strongly recommend, if you have a significant claim personally, not if you're part of an HOA as a condo, but if you have a house that burned down, I would get with an attorney. I interviewed a great one. Shiva Bhaskar is fantastic. And make sure that your claim from the beginning is done, submitted, documented, and push hard right away. There are attorneys that will take their fee out of the increase over the amount the insurance company initially offers you. So I would say get in line and start pushing now, because you're going to find the insurance companies just don't have the money to pay everybody that they're obligated to pay. And that's going to cause some problems. Okay, so what else is going on? The second factor I think I would talk about is what the rebuild might look like. Now, it's one thing if it's an apartment building, they're going to get the insurance and they're going to rebuild on the same footprint in most likelihood. But it's going to be hard. A couple of things that will make it hard. I do want to say that overall, the housing shortage, the lack of housing is the biggest problem. Here's an article in the Wall Street Journal by Zillow saying that the shortage of housing is what's causing the lack of housing. We're short 4.5 million units. So anyhow, that's always been our issue. And now in Los Angeles, we just lost, 10,000 housing units overall. On top of that, people really didn't want to sell. The people whose houses burned down, more than 1/3 of them didn't want to sell. Their plan was to never sell. This is a change. In years past, people would move out of homes into, facilities for elder people, smaller homes. They would retire to retirement communities. And one thing that's true in the Palisades is elderly people wanted to stay there. And if you can afford to, why not? Now those people are being forced to sell. So it's going to put some more inventory into play. But those people really don't want to sell. And I'm not sure necessarily, just because you move them out, they might not take a settlement and try to rebuild there. So we're not sure what's going to happen overall. Elsewhere in the economy, we do know that that's an issue. But we do know that the government does not want to rebuild every house that burned down. The government wants to build more dense housing. This is an article, again, in Redfin, about 1/3 of people want to sell. But if you look at the article, in fact, if you read their CEO, and as I talked about last week, really, this is just a front organization for the Democrat Party. So when Glenn, what's his name? Glenn Kelman speaks at Redfin, he's really telling you what the Democrat Party, what Gavin Newsom wants to do. And what he says is the only solution is building more density. And so one of the things I don't think people understand is I think 20% of Californians are thrilled the house is burned down because they think we have too many homes. They think we should either let the land lie fallow or give the land back to indigenous people. And instead, we should be building high-rise towers that connect to mass transit. And this is one of those people, one of the political forces has been Redfin, I think, on that issue. And so I think that you're going to find that the rebuilding, while right now, when you face to face with a homeowner whose house burned down, everybody's going to play nice and say, well, what a pity. But once the energy comes off of it, once the president and the national press go away, and it's back to the same old political factors here in Los Angeles and California, we're going to find that the government officials don't want to rebuild the Palisades the way that it was. They're going to want to rebuild a reimagined Palisades. And that's the word they use, which is more government control rather than individual control. Another problem is regulation. And the problem is it costs so much to build a house because of the amount of regulations that go in. If you saw an exchange on Friday, President Trump was in town, was talking to the mayor, Karen Bass. And she was saying how quickly they're going to move. And President Trump said, well, I was talking to some homeowners who tell us already there's at least 18 months before we can even get the lots cleared off. And Karen Bass said, no, that's not true. We move right away. And there's a guy in the room who said, no, I was told 18 months. And in fact, one of the departments of Los Angeles put out a bulletin that before a homeowner can clear their lot, it has to be inspected. And there's so many inspections required. It's going to take about 18 months before people should expect to get their home approved for demolition, that there's no toxic chemicals. That's going to delay things. And so those are kinds of things that make this process go longer than they should be. And again, in many cases, these are government officials who don't want to rebuild houses. I think I shared previously, I'm a broker of record for a property management company downtown. We had some criminals who drove a truck through our shipping bay door thinking our building, our office was connected to a cannabis distributor next door. We're not. But they know that. So they drove a truck through our shipping bay, one of those roll-up metal doors. It wasn't more than, I don't know, 10 feet wide, 15 feet wide, and maybe 10 feet high. It cost me $10,000 material and about another $10,000 to install. It took us 6 months to get the permit from the city of LA just to replace the door that was damaged by criminals. So imagine how long it's going to take to rebuild houses near the coastline. Those houses along the coast will never be built. The California Coastal Commission it puts the new standards on. That's why those houses were there, because they were old, but they were so wonderful to be on the beach that the owners just kept remodeling and fixing them up. But there's no way they're going to allow them to get rebuilt there. I don't see it happening. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? I think that whatever is allowed will have less coastline and will have less hills. And again, that was kind of the unique beauty of some of these homes, was the hills and the views. But that also is where the risk is for fires. And the coastline, again, I didn't own a house there. They're magnificent along Pacific Coast Highway. I just don't see them allowing them getting rebuilt again. So I think you'll find the rebuild will be less coast, less homes, less beach property, and it's going to take forever. The third problem I think that we have to face is that the economy in California is going to be difficult. Meaning, if the economy is good, people have extra money to buy things and pay money. But when things are tough, a lot of people in the Palisades are related to Hollywood production, creatives, both in front of the camera and behind it. And the problem is that business is moving out very quickly. I know famously, a lot of it's been moving to Las Vegas, and they're building huge studios, as well as other states that have tax incentives. CoStar, which is a leading commercial real estate research, says home production hit near record lows as wildfires only add to the challenges. This came out before the wildfires, that were basically down to all-time lows of production, since the COVID period. And so these are the people who I think made the Palisades for the most part, or like a good chunk of it. And if those jobs are difficult, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a difficult economy. Now, I think overall the economy is good nationwide, but Los Angeles is going to have some challenges, and that's going to be one of them. The last area to talk about is the value of lots. What's a lot worth? So you have a neighborhood, let's say, where an entire block burned down. What's that worth? Well, there's a house on that block, let's say it was an older, never remodeled 2,000 square foot house on a 6,000 square foot lot. That house probably was sold for about $2 million, would have been a teardown. Older family lived there, maybe a surviving spouse moving into an adult facility. And a developer would buy it, scrape it down, and build a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot house and sell it for $5-6 million. The problem is that would be difficult to be the first house on the block surrounded with 10 or 20 empty lots. The value of those homes partially is the neighborhood, partially are the neighbors, partially are the services would have to be rebuilt as well. So what's that lot? Who's going to buy that remodeled house? Also, what's that lot worth? You've heard stories about a lot of houses not being insured. The reason why is that house I told you about where a lady was living, it was run down. But if it burned down, it's still worth the lot, right? That the house isn't really worth anything. The lot is all the value. And so when the house burns down, they still have the lot. So other than getting for personal property and their clothes or their cars or whatever, how much is the insurance company going to pay for an old home that its highest and best use was to be torn down? Now, there are some homeowners who got guaranteed replacement insurance, but that became out of favor as these homes became more valuable, as the lots became more valuable. And so many people in the Palisades simply went without insurance. It's estimated 30%. And I would say of the 70% rest, over half don't have replacement cost insurance. And so the insurance company is going to pay them maybe for the cost of removing the waste, or give them some nominal value to go buy a house somewhere else if they sell the lot. So that hasn't been determined yet. What's the market going to be there? Well, some of the most desirable real estate in Los Angeles before the fires, today, difficult to say, difficult to appraise. Imagine an appraiser and being asked, what's the house worth that burned down? Every house within 2 blocks of it, what's that lot worth? Hard to establish the value. Is it worth as much as it was before the fires? I don't think so. So these are things that get worked out. I think over the next few years, there'll be litigation, there'll be regulations, there'll be political battles over it. I think the thing to understand is it's going to take time. And if you don't have time, you better move soon. I really strongly recommend anybody whose home burned down or has a significant claim from the fires, get legal help. Call me, reach out, watch my YouTube with Shiva. Call him directly, set up a time. It doesn't cost anything to get that consult and get started. What do you think? Am I wrong? Am I pessimistic? I don't think I'm pessimistic. I'm urging people to take action. I think if you take the right steps, you'll be able to get the best value for your situation. If I can help in any way, call me, text me, email me. I'm at Bill Gross Probate on social media, billgrossprobate.com. As always, make today your best day ever.